So, I was at the gym the other night, and it was January 6th. It's a couple days ago. It's the 4-year anniversary of an attack on our Capitol by Trump supporters, by white supremacists, gangs, and obviously the attacks were designed by Trump and his inner circle to attract these people, to talk them into going. Happened to be on the day of the vote count. It wasn't a coincidence that it was that day, but it was spoken about with seemingly, crazily enough, plausible deniability in it. So come, it'll be wild. And then when they were there, they were roused by these absolute political arsonists, like Rudy Giuliani saying things like, "It'll be trial by combat." So when Trump and Trump supporters say, "Hey, they wanted me to do a speech there. I just came and spoke," and whatever. These are absolute lies, and those are designed to make liberals like me feel crazy and make Trump supporters either give them plausible deniability for supporting it if they're still feeling feelings or regret, but also to say, like, look how powerful this man is. He can lie with impunity about a violent act that was an attempted overthrow of our nation. And maybe it showed the Trump supporters, hey, uh, this guy will do anything. This guy can do anything. And somehow the taboo, the violating the laws and rules and lying is the thing that really turns them on. Where the rest of us, it really turns us off. It scares us to think that someone or a group of someone's could and would violate our laws and rules, and could violate them in a way that not just violate them, not just breaking a law or a rule, but had they been successful, that we might not have rules anymore, or at least rules that were created by the will of the people, and that the person who was in charge may no longer be chosen by the people of the nation, even if we do it in a convoluted way with the electoral college and such. So for liberals and those who disagree with what happened, and there were conservatives who definitely disagreed with what happened, the Cheneys and Kinsingers and all these other people that were courageous enough to speak up and say, hey, I'm going to risk my political career to try and hold this person accountable. That's patriotism. It's not liberalism that doesn't like what Trump did. It's patriotism that doesn't like it. And that's why soldiers like Kinzinger are no longer in office, because they got run out of town, um, primaried by Trump loyalists. And they knew that was going to happen, and Liz Cheney knew that was going to happen too. But she loved, and he loved, their country more than their career, than their ego. And that's what patriotism is. It's sacrifice like that. So I honor those people, even though I completely disagree with their worldview, because it wasn't about worldview when that happened. It wasn't about what they think about even important issues like the right to bodily autonomy and abortion, etc. So that was a pretty long 4-minute preamble to what happened the other night, because it's important. So I was at the gym, and I saw this guy. He was maybe 10, 15 years older than me, and just went up to him when he was on his recumbent bike. And I said, hey, did you see all those liberals and Democrats attack the Capitol today? With a nod and a wink. And he said, no. And I said, me neither. And the point was obviously that we don't do that. Not because we don't see problems or something like that, but because we don't want political violence to be the answer. I don't know if it's because liberals, or at least Democrats, were the victims of political violence when Kennedy was killed, and when John Kennedy was killed, and when Robert Kennedy was killed. And you could argue that JFK wasn't per se a liberal Democrat, more of a moderate Democrat, but that was still our hope. That was our guy, and So we didn't like that. And I don't know if anyone ever said, "Ha, that was for partisan reasons." Somebody with Nixon, or something like that was behind that. But we certainly don't like that, and um, I'm sure that there are people on the left that have committed political violence. I think we remember that softball game thing where a guy came up and shot all these people, but the left absolutely decries political violence. And every single one of its politicians decries political violence and is against political violence, period, end of story, no exceptions. So, the point I was making to the guys, we don't do that, and we didn't do that. And when Kamala Harris, who was the actual candidate for president, came up and spoke about the vote count, she just said, here's the number, and it doesn't serve my purposes, and I'm not going to try to overturn it, because she, like most people in the nation used to feels like the system needs to be honored. The system that our votes count, even if it goes down a tricky little path in the electoral college. That matters. It matters more than her career, and she wouldn't dare have the audacity to engineer a coup like Trump did, and that's absolutely against what we are and what she stands for and what half the country still stands for, barely, or barely not half the country, I guess. So I walked away from the guy, with a nod and a wink, like just fist bumped him and just said, have a good night. And that wasn't an ugly interaction or anything. Um, but before I walked away, he said to me, "That's politics." And I said, "No, no, no. That's political violence." And so it was interesting to me in thinking about it now, especially because what he was doing was normalizing political violence. That's politics. An attack on the Capitol where they tried to overturn the election results. It's just politics. So over 10 years, that's been normalized. And for him, and so I instantly called him out on it with my eyes, way bigger than they are now. No, that's political violence, and that's not acceptable. It's never acceptable. And somebody might say, well, somebody tried to kill Trump. I agree. Multiple people tried to kill Trump. And they appear to be absolutely batshit crazy Trump supporters from everything I can see. But even if they were Bernie or Biden or Harris supporters, it was because they're crazy. There's no one on the left who wants political violence to happen. There's no one who is trying to gin up political violence and try to demagogue and say we should go kill somebody on the right. Hell no. I think that there might have been people on the left who, exasperated that Trump is actually going to be president again, might have joked that, they wish that the shooters hadn't missed. And I think that's just out of absolute, just kind of desperation or overwhelm. Like, really? We're going to have a leader who tried to take over our country by not handing over power. I wish that the person who attempted that, had been successful, because then we wouldn't have to deal with this. But I think that they realize, or that they must realize when saying such a thing, that that would be worse, that the immediate problem of Trump would be gone. But then obviously you'd have J.D. Vance or something as president, and that would start, it would seem, kind of a cascade of events where political violence became normalized again. Because so many people believe that Trump is this answer, that he's going to save the day based on all the demagoguing he's done. So then I would say, see, they killed our Messiah, so we've got to now, that's okay now, and that's the thing we do now. Whereas I don't think anyone said, hey, Kennedy was killed, let's kill Nixon, or something like that, or let's kill Johnson. I don't think people, regular people, thought that. We thought either that was CIA or that was the mafia, or that was Cuba or Johnson, or maybe all of the above, obviously. But we didn't think like, well, that's how you do business. But that man at the gym, who I love, like, he's awesome, was acting like that's just normal now. That's politics, buddy. Yeah, we go strong arm our way into the Capitol and try to hang Mike Pence and kill AOC and break in and hurt cops and try to overturn the election results. So that's just politics, buddy. No, that's absolute barbarianism. So um, I walked away and I went back to my stretching and stuff like that, where I was just starting. And it wasn't too long before he was done with his bike routine, and he came over to me and said to me, he said, I didn't like that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I didn't like that January 6th thing. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, thank you for saying that. I really genuinely was like, that's awesome that he could stand up and admit that to me. Because we'd had these talks before where we respected each other and had a little back and forth. And that was vulnerable of the guy to say, hey, I didn't like that. And I just said back to him, I was like, oh, great. I'm glad that you could admit that that wasn't cool. I said, the problem I have is that wasn't enough for you to say, hey, we don't do that. And that I told him, I said, gosh, I wish that if that was, you didn't like that, if that was wrong to you, that you could have stood up and said, hey, I couldn't possibly vote for somebody who did that. That if that's wrong, it's wrong on such a deep level. It's so dangerous, it's so inflammatory, it's so destructive to who and what we are that I couldn't possibly vote for that man. And that I must either abstain from voting or vote for the person who could win against that. And so that this act, this vile act, is so bad that the need to stop anyone who would do that is bigger than our ideology, or bigger than our personal desires, our political desires, our want for our lower taxes, or our perception that this person is savvy or he's tough and he'll handle the other dictators in the world or something like that. All of that must be secondary and be subordinated to the idea that this man and those people that did that must be stopped and held accountable and not be given more power. So it's one thing to say, hey, gosh, I don't think it was a big deal. I don't want them held accountable. Or, hey, I didn't like it, but her laugh is funny, or she's not really black, or her liberal California policies, or, she's not, prepared. And of course, she and both Hillary Clinton were both very seasoned politicians at the point that they ran. So to say that these people kind of weren't ready is, BS. I didn't particularly like Hillary Clinton as a candidate because I don't think she energized the base or energized anyone. Didn't really have a thing that she was going for. Just like, hey, it's my turn. Here we go. Neoliberalism, let's go. And at least Kamala Harris was a lot more energizing and engaging, and felt like she was like working and fighting for the opportunity to be the presidential candidate. But even that was somewhat stolen from her, in that Joe Biden hung on for so long and so arrogantly said, yeah, I got this, when we all knew he didn't. So I kind of make the argument that Biden really lost it for Kamala Harris because he was so dishonest about his capacity to run, whereas Trump won because dishonesty is him being his true self. And so I think people, when they see him lying and cheating, stealing, fomenting violence and things, are saying, I like those things. That's really him, and that's what I really want. Whereas Joe Biden was pretending to be capable when he was beyond his capacity to be capable. And so it's kind of a conundrum, because when Donald Trump is being his true self and being his authentic self, that is a deceptive, violence fomenting, wannabe autocrat. But he's being his true self, whereas Biden was pretending to be the younger version of him that was capable, if a schmuck. So when I said that to that man, I said, gosh, I wish you could have if you felt that way, you could have seen that that behavior is so abhorrent and so horrible that one could not possibly in good conscience support that candidate, because that candidate is trying to take power and hold on to power and amass more power such that he doesn't let go of power. He's obviously evading um, being held accountable for crimes, multiple crimes in multiple jurisdictions, nationally and locally, about the election and about other things, business wise, and on and on. Held accountable for sexual assault and so much more that I guess what I was asking, what's the disconnect where if you didn't like that, how is it acceptable for you to vote for him? But we didn't get into that long conversation. So unlike this video, it was so concise and so quick and so natural and so honest. And so when I said that to him, just very easily, you know, I wish that you could have done that. And how is it that you couldn't? He kind of looked at me and looked around a little bit and thought and said, like, okay, and like, have a good night, you know, like, and just walked away in a friendly way, but as if I had really gotten him to think. And I thought to myself, did I just reach a Trump supporter? I think I did. And maybe I reached him all along because I was friendly about it and respectful, and I was curious about his political views and his life and his older guy perspective, which I was and am. I mean, I totally am. But just because you're older doesn't mean you're right, of course. And if I'm talking to a 30-year-old, I'm not saying, hey, believe me, I'm 50. I know everything. Of course not. But at least my 50 and his 65 or whatever, they do have extra perspective. And those perspectives are interesting, if not reason to believe and trust and take someone's vantage point, you know, without question. So I do have the sense that I maybe reached one Trump supporter, and that I wonder what it's going to be like next week and next month and next year with him. And obviously, if the Trump administration is as I say it will be, maybe he'll have regret. But inevitably, if we're going to get our country back from this thing, if we're going to get power back into the hands of people that believe in our system, and that maybe even want to fix the problems that elicited someone like Trump coming along and manipulating everyone because things have gotten so bad or seeming so bad, or that the money's not trickling down, or that the system has these faults that he has magnified and shown and or distorted into seeming worse than they are. All of the above. It's an absolute chaotic mess now, and that's what he wants. He's a chaos agent. So maybe as that goes on, this person says, huh, I was wrong. I was duped. How was it that I was duped? What's the nature of that duping? And that might be a really interesting thing, and I might be there with him to say, well, maybe it was the media you watched, or maybe it was the fear-mongering that he did and does. Maybe he pushed a button of yours. Maybe it was immigrants. Maybe there was some latent racism in there. Maybe there was some sexism in there when two women ran against Trump two of the three times. And or maybe it was your economic concerns, but you noticed now he tried to take away your Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid that you need as a guy getting to that age, and you see how things can get worse instead of assuming that they can't get worse, and that the communists like Kamala Harris and Biden are no such thing, that they're absolutely guys that are backed up and in the pocket of big businesses left and right and center, and that's just, both parties are like that right now. If we want to solve that problem, it's not going to be from some dude who pretends that the liberals are communists because they're absolutely corporatists, but somebody who comes along and says, let's fix this system instead of let's blow it up, and that's really just going to benefit the ultra wealthy, who are so ultra wealthy already that it defies logic. Like, how could you possibly want or feel like you need more? And or if you can't get enough money at this point, like, that appears to be an illness or some kind of mind virus, and I've been looking into things like that. Wetiko is a Native American term for a mind virus that some believed the white um, settlers and brought with them, and that ever since that they came, that kind of virus had infected the nation, and that the Indian scholars and thinkers had a term for this too, and that this wasn't the first time someone had thought of this, but it was so foreign seemingly to the Native Americans, and it would seem that somebody like Elon Musk and definitely Donald Trump and others have this mind virus where it's never enough, and anything that gets in the way of more money and more power doesn't matter, or and so humans that get in the way, poor people, the people that earn the money, the people that make these businesses run, are just not worthy of protection and care and sharing in the bounty. And so I am glad that I had that conversation with that person, and I felt like that was like a special moment between me and that person, because there was enough trust for him to admit that no, that was not politics, that was political violence, and that maybe he did the wrong thing there. Maybe there's some buyer's remorse. But it's funny too, I guess one more insight just came to me. If Elon Musk and the Zuckerbergs and all the Bezos and all the guys are under this spell of Wetiko, that you should look up, Wetiko, then it's funny that even the common everyday Joe Trump supporter must also be under it, because instead of saying, oh gosh, I've amassed this wealth and I need more and more and more, it's more like this hero worship, saying, gosh, these guys have the money, I want to be rich like Elon, I want to be him, or I want to be Trump, and all this power that they seem to have. And I think these are hollow men. I don't think these are powerful men. I think these are men that are absolutely scared and ill and lost, and that are not becoming adults, and that are not don't have a soul, or not much of one, and so it would seem that Wetiko, of which I spoke, and I watched some amazing videos on that are really interesting and captivating, is that Wetiko maybe kind of like turns off one's empathy. And I'm somebody who's experienced having my empathy turned off, whether it was for reasons of trauma, or fear, or addictions, or things like that I'm like, how come I wasn't feeling, and how come I wasn't caring in this moment? Or wow, that's mind-blowing that I was there to any extent, much less to the extent that these people on the world stage are, that are amassing $400 billion fortunes and laying off people and making decisions that harm people, but also misleading the people that they're harming by making them work more and more hours, etc., into believing that they're the solution to the problems that these people are facing, when they're the cause of it, or at least they're in the group that is manipulating these people into working more hours, less pay, getting fired, getting laid off, and then leading them astray via these policies where the safeguards that they now survive on are going to be cut out too. This is absolute madness. And so the only rung I could cling to intellectually when watching all of this manipulation was the idea of Wetiko, saying, like, what spell are we under? And that's a book idea I've had for years, the spell. And what is the nature of the spell that that causes people to be misled and to believe into misinformation and disinformation? What spell is it that causes people to attack the Capitol like that, or to believe that the election was stolen by Joe Biden when it was not? There's no way it was. And that was just a seemingly convenient impetus for the political violence of January 6th, or the re-election of Donald Trump, or the not holding him accountable for all of his crimes, including January 6th. What is the nature of what a powerful spell that is? And so when somebody put that word into my head via those videos, the Wetiko word, I thought, oh, there it is. There's actually a spell. There's a name for that thing that's going on here. What's this thing that's going on here? How is it that we're putting that man back in power? How is it that just over half the voting populace willingly, gleefully voted for this person? And maybe some people not gleefully. Maybe they kind of pretended they didn't or whatever because they have liberal friends. But how is it that we're here? And if that spell is strong enough to have us here, where we're willingly putting this man back in power who wants to tear down our whole system of checks and balances, of power derived from the people, however indirectly, however flawed that path to power is, and that grasp on power is from the people, he wants to make it worse. He wants to give us less safeguards, take away more power, and tell us that he's giving us more, and tell us that it's for our own good. And we did that. So if that virus, that mind virus, Wetiko, let's say, is able to do that to us, and is able to take over the hosts like Trump and Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and all these guys, and talk us into absolute self-destruction and living and choosing choices that are against our best wishes, what else can it do? Is it going to help us destroy this planet via not caring for it, via not doing what it takes? Because that's going to be part of the Trump game plan. So when I say that, like, we're under a spell, I'm not kidding. And I'm not the first person to think of it. And it's just neat to think, okay, I was on to something here, and that people have been thinking for a long time. And now we're seeing this kind of modern outgrowth of it, that we're all like looking at computer screens, we're all divided, and kind of hating each other and mistrusting each other, obviously voting someone into power who is absolutely against everything we believe in. And it was the absolute Antichrist if you're Christian. I mean, there he is. So if we're willing to do that, that mind virus must be absolutely insidious and powerful, and it must take over the amygdala or whatever it is. And whether it has something to do with money itself, or that kind of root of all evil piece, maybe it's not the money that's the root of all evil, but when somebody's like a 200 billionaire and he chooses to go with Trump to be a 400 billionaire, that he could never spend all that money, he could never give enough of it away, and yet he's absolutely power hungry and power crazed, and they all are, and maybe I would be too. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm better than them. I'm just saying, like, I'm curious enough to know that maybe there is a mind virus that could harm me this way, and that has kind of taken over our planet. And how do we inoculate ourselves? How is it that I didn't vote for that? How do we come back from this? And obviously, me having that nice, respectful talk with this specific person was joyous, and I felt connected to the guy. I felt like he had his humanity, not enough to have done the right thing, but that he was hanging on to some semblance of it in this crazy time, and I applaud him for that. I've also spoken to a couple other supporters, and one of them was an old friend from high school who was just my soul buddy, just so close. And I was just like, are you serious? You voted for Trump? And then when I kind of composed myself, being in shock that he did, we had a very nice talk about it, and about, like, how we can hope for the best, how we'll both be honest about if he is successful, I will speak up, and if he's not, and that this friend would too. And so I was very proud of that person for being cool like that, and for myself for not getting mad at him or taking out some kind of anger or fear on him. And he, admitted that he was a lower information voter than me. And when I kind of brought up answers to his points, you could sense that he was like, oh God, did I hope he's not right, and so here we are. We can't go back. We can't, I don't have a time machine. So in lieu of the time machine, we've got to find our way to turn off the virus in the people that have it. I don't know how. Maybe the conversation's a clue. Inoculate ourselves further, and then undo the damage of the get him out of power, and um, and then work on our system, the governmental system that we have with the problems that it has, the weaknesses that it has, and still try to make an economy that works better for everybody, and try to keep the planet from overheating, and um, keep the world from going to war. I mean, there's so much that we could be doing instead of trying to get rid of Trump as a president, trying to safeguard ourselves against him. But if there's anything I'm learning from kind of Zen Buddhism and that type of thing, is like, you can't. This is what it is. Like, we're here, and so I'm not saying we're here for a reason, and this is God's trying to teach us something. But it's like, since we're here, we might as well do what we can do to fight, to heal, to learn, to grow, to reconnect, and to maybe come out on the other side with a stronger, more vibrant government, country, culture, economy, ecology, social safety nets, maybe a people that feels like it's exercising its demons. And I don't know if all that's possible, but I guess the only choices are to try valiantly, in good faith and earnest, or to give up. And I'm not giving up. I'm just got started. Like, this writing, this speaking, this thinking, sharing these insights. I'm just getting started. I started writing about this when Trump came around, and I'm just kind of discovering this side of myself. So I can't cower and go run away. Like, I actually feel patriotic now. I never did as a person. So here we are in this grave time, and I hope that other people will, the 3 or 4 people that watch this video, will kind of tell their friends, and talk to those who chose Trump in a respectful way, and with curiosity, and but also with firmness. I think that was another thing I did there with that guy. I just kind of firmly said, no, that's political violence. So we've got to be firm too. We've got to reality test for people in a way that doesn't get their hackles up. And somehow I succeeded a couple times recently, when most of the time I've been so absolutely outraged or angry or irritated or sarcastic, or reading off the litany of reasons why not, and it's just overload for somebody who's been overloaded by Fox News and all that propaganda for so many years. That's become reality for people. So we're so vulnerable, and we're so weak-minded that half the nation fell into this really quizzically embarrassing trap, and we have to help them out anyway, whether we like it or not, or whether we're pissed, or whether we're even talking to that family member that made that choice, or husband or wife. Or here we are. We can't wish our way out of this, and if we're going to break this spell, this Wetiko, then we're going to have to really be invested in it, and get past our maybe anger and irritation with these people, and humanize them, even if and as they may dehumanize us. But I sense that from a few different people that I know that voted for Trump even after January 6th, that they're a little more relaxed. They got what they wanted. It wasn't stolen or all these things where they would have maybe, started the Civil War. So they're relaxed. And then now that they got what they wanted, I know that there's buyer's remorse. I know that people are Googling what's a tariff, who pays for a tariff, and all these things. And so there's got to be a process underway. And For me, I'm going to not only speak to people at the gym or whatever it is, but get involved politically on a local level, which I've never done. Instead of just writing and doing videos and stuff, and whether it's the Democratic Party, um, which has really lost its way. Maybe we help it find its way, or maybe we create a new party, or who knows. But something's got to give, and it's going to start with us being very connected and active, and reinvigorating our political life on the local, regional, and national levels. We have to all become, civically minded citizens in a world where we've been kind of treating politics like a spectator sport, and that we were just little talking point Pez dispensers against each other, and we have to actually be active. And what's our nation about? What's our town about? Is it about the people? Or is it about the animals? Is it about the trees and the clean water? Or is it just about trying to amass power and trying to stick it to the other guy, or fear of people that look different than us, So, a lot of questions, but it's going to take civic involvement. And sorry this one was so long, but I guess I had a lot more to say than I thought. As we're on January 8th, I hope people can stay involved, get involved, continue to resist what is absolutely against what our nation is about, and still reach out and still connect and still humanize those who made a very regrettable choice that's going to affect all of us. And obviously we can hope for the best at the same time. And maybe the final thing is to look within and figure out, like, if we have a spiritual life, and what our deity or our higher self or soul wants, and what's our job here, what am I here for? Because to me it seems like I'm here for this, largely. I mean, I'm here to play drums too and sell houses and pet kitty cats on the road when I'm taking a walk, but we're here for something, is the way I like to look at it, without dogmatizing that in any way. And I feel like I'm here for this, and I want to join this battle, or this plan, or this reawakening, or whatever it's called, or whatever I'm supposed to do in it. I'm honored to be playing my little part in it, and I hope you find a way to play yours.